Hello, dear friend. Isn't there something special about those quiet early hours just before the world fully wakes? When the dew still clings to the roses and the robins are singing their soft morning songs, I imagine you there on your back porch or along a little garden path, watering can in hand, heart at ease. There's no rush in this moment, just the peaceful rhythm of caring for something that depends on you. Watering a garden might seem simple, even ordinary. But the more years we've lived, the more we understand it's really an act of love. Each drop carries something more than moisture. It carries your attention, your patience, and your quiet presence. You don't need fancy tools or youthful energy to keep a garden alive. You don't need a big budget or strong knees. What you need is what you already have: a gentle touch, a bit of wisdom, and a willingness to notice what your plants are asking for. Today, I'd like to walk with you through 12 watering secrets that every seasoned gardener should know. They're not hard, and many of them you might already be doing without even realizing it. But when we combine a lifetime of intuition with a few simple insights, something beautiful happens. We save water, we strengthen our plants, we bring more ease into our days. So come sit with me a while. Let's talk about how just a little water given wisely can help your garden and your spirit bloom with peace, strength, and joy. Your hands still create beauty, my friend. Let's begin. Remember the way the garden smells in the early morning, before the sun gets too warm and the world is still hushed. It's a sacred kind of quiet, the kind where you can hear the soil, breathing, the bees yawning, and the leaves slowly stretching themselves toward the light. That, dear friend, is the very best time to water. You see, the early hours just after dawn offer the perfect conditions for your plants to drink deeply and safely. The air is cooler, the wind is gentler, and the sun hasn't yet begun to pull moisture away from the earth. Every drop you give has time to soak in to nourish the roots instead of vanishing into the heat. In fact, watering at noon under the bright sun can waste as much as 30% of your effort. Picture yourself gently pouring water onto thirsty soil, only to watch it steam away before your roses even get a chance to sip. That's not just frustrating, it's wasteful, especially for those of us who cherish every penny and every ounce of water. But there's another reason mornings are best, one that's often forgotten: plant health. When leaves stay wet too long, especially overnight, it creates a perfect little sauna for fungus and mildew to grow. Morning watering allows the sun to dry those leaves naturally throughout the day, keeping them healthy and disease-free. It's like tucking your plants into a clean, dry bed instead of leaving them damp and shivering through the night. Now, if early mornings aren't your favorite time, or if your body simply doesn't move as quickly before coffee, there are still good options. Late afternoon after the heat has passed can be a safe second choice. Just be sure there's still enough daylight for the foliage to dry before nightfall. Because wet leaves in the dark, that's an open invitation to blight and trouble. And what about those who use automated watering systems? Many of them are set to water in the middle of the night to avoid daytime evaporation. That's understandable and often efficient, but still risky for disease. If you're using a timer, try scheduling it to finish around 4:30 or 5:00 a.m. just before sunrise. That way you save water and keep your garden healthy. But let's bring this back to the heart of it, those quiet early moments with your garden. Many of us have found that starting the day with a slow walk among the plants, watering as we go, becomes something more than a routine. It becomes a gentle ritual, a time to think, a time to remember, a time to feel useful and connected again. There's a sense of rhythm in gardening that mirrors the rhythm of aging, slower, softer, and more intentional. You don't rush through it. You take your time. You notice the new bloom on the zinnia, or the way your tomato plant has grown an inch overnight. And as you water, you're not just feeding roots, you're nourishing your soul. A garden doesn't ask for much. Just your attention, a bit of water, and your care. And when you give it that in the stillness of morning, it gives something back. A quiet gratitude, a sense of being needed. A reminder that even now your presence can bring life. So, if you're able, pour your first cup of tea or coffee slip on your garden shoes and meet your plants before the sun rises too high. Let the cool air wrap around your shoulders as you water gently, slowly, lovingly. Your garden will thank you with blossoms, and your heart, I suspect, will feel just a little lighter. Because watering early isn't just about science or savings. It's about choosing to begin the day in peace, with intention, with love, and with a little joy tucked between the leaves. There's a reason we rest in the heat of the day, dear friend. Just like us, plants can become overwhelmed, even scorched by the midday sun. When the light is harshest and the earth begins to radiate back the morning's warmth, it's not the time to ask our gardens or our knees to endure more than they must. And yet, how often do we find ourselves tempted to get the watering over with during a lunch break or an early afternoon chore session? Maybe it seems convenient. But the truth is, watering in the middle of the day is one of the fastest ways to waste your water and your effort. You see, when sunlight is at its peak and the ground is already warm, most of the water you pour doesn't make it far. Instead, it evaporates before it ever reaches the roots. Imagine trying to quench your thirst by catching raindrops in a desert wind. That's what it's like for your flowers and vegetables when they're watered at high noon. Even more concerning, when cold water hits the hot leaves and sun-baked soil, it can shock the plant. It's a bit like stepping into an ice bath after being out in the summer heat. It's jarring, stressful, and potentially damaging. Your plants may droop, develop leaf spots, or suffer from heat stress. What's worse, the quick drying that happens in this heat might trick you into thinking the plants need more water than they do. So you water again and again. But still, the soil remains dry beneath the surface and the plants don't seem to improve. It becomes a cycle of frustration and unnecessary strain. For gardeners who've been doing this for many seasons, you may recall a time when the sun felt gentler. But in today's climate, with higher temperatures and unpredictable weather, that midday sun has become especially unforgiving. That's why adjusting our habits matters more than ever. Now, if your mornings are already full or you simply can't get outside until later in the day, don't worry. The late afternoon, once the harshest heat begins to fade, offers a window of grace. Watering around 5 or 6 p.m. when the sun has started to lower and the ground begins to cool allows moisture to soak in without too much evaporation. It's not perfect, but it's kind. Just be sure the leaves have time to dry before nightfall. A damp leaf sleeping under a dark sky is a magnet for mildew. Some folks ask, but what if I'm using a sprinkler system or watering timer? Those can be helpful tools, especially for older gardeners who prefer not to haul heavy hoses. But even then, the timing still matters. Avoid setting your system for midday watering. Instead, program it for very early morning or late at night, ending just before dawn. That's when you'll get the most water into the soil without soaking the leaves too long. If your only time to water is when the sun's already overhead, consider giving yourself permission to skip a day or prepare the soil with mulch, which we'll talk about soon, to help hold moisture longer between waterings. Plants are resilient, and so are you. You don't have to push yourself under the hottest sky to care for your garden. There's wisdom in waiting, and kindness in pacing. There's a gentle metaphor in this, don't you think? Just as we've learned not to stretch ourselves too thin in the heat of life's demands, we learn to care for our gardens with patience and timing. Everything has its season. Everything has its moment. Let your watering become part of your rhythm, a calm ritual guided by nature's cues, not by the clock on the wall. Mornings for fresh starts, evenings for gentle closure, and midday is for shade, a good book, a glass of water for you. The garden will wait. So take a breath, rest in the cooler times, and know that your plants will flourish better when you water them, not just with effort, but with wisdom. Because sometimes not doing something like skipping that noon watering is the most nurturing act of all. There's a hush that falls over the garden in the late afternoon. The light grows softer, the breeze calms. The bees finish their work and begin to head home. And if you step outside around that time, watering can in hand, you may find something quietly magical waiting for you. While early mornings are still the gold standard for watering, many gardeners, especially those with slower mornings or full routines, find comfort in the calm of the late day. And when done with care, late afternoon or early evening, watering can be just as gentle and effective. The key, dear friend, is timing. You don't want to water so late that the leaves remain wet through the night. Dampness in darkness is a silent invitation for mildew, fungus, and other plant ailments to move in. But watering during that sweet spot when the sun is lower and the heat has passed gives you a chance to nourish your garden while allowing just enough time for the foliage to dry before nightfall. Many of us remember our grandparents tending the garden after supper, a quiet routine that felt almost like prayer. They'd walk the rows with slow steps, hand on a hose or holding a chipped metal can, watering not just plants but memories too. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't loud. It was simply the final offering of the day, a way of saying, "Sleep well, little garden. I'll see you in the morning." And you know what? That kind of rhythm still works. Watering in the late afternoon, especially if you're someone who tires easily in the morning or prefers to move after the heat dies down, can be a gift. It's cooler than midday, gentler on your back and joints, and gives your plants a bit of relief before the night. Think of it as a bedtime story in the language of water. Now, here's something practical. When you water during this time, pay extra attention to how long the sun will stay up. You want at least an hour or two of fading daylight to help dry any leaves you might have splashed by accident. Using a watering wand or can to aim directly at the base of the plants can help prevent wet foliage altogether. If you've ever noticed a white powdery coating on your squash leaves or dark spots on your roses, it may be from watering too late when the moisture lingers through the cool night. But if you finish watering before the sun fully sets, those risks drop significantly. For those using automated systems or hose timers, consider adjusting your settings to late afternoon if early morning isn't feasible. And if you're someone who enjoys sitting out back with a cool drink as the sun fades, why not bring your watering can along and stroll through the yard? You might find that it's one of the most peaceful parts of your day. There's also a unique emotional benefit to evening watering. The day is mostly done. You've carried your responsibilities, felt your feelings, maybe even weathered a few small storms. To come out and care for something growing, something alive, is a gentle way to release the tension. Watering becomes an act of restoration for you and for your plants. Many senior gardeners I've spoken with say their evening watering routine helps them sleep better. Something about reconnecting with the earth, with life, settles their mind. And it makes sense. There's a satisfaction in doing a quiet task, well in knowing your plants have had their drink and are safe for the night. So if mornings aren't your time, or if you simply prefer the golden hush of day's end, embrace the late afternoon as your watering window. Just be mindful. Water low, not high. Allow time for drying. And enjoy those last soft rays of sunlight touching the tips of your lilies and tomatoes. Watering doesn't always have to happen at dawn. Sometimes the heart opens best at dusk, and your garden like you will flourish when treated with patience and peace. Because in the end, it's not about the clock. It's about the care. Do you remember how in the old days we were taught that strong foundations matter more than appearances? A house needs a deep footing. A tree needs a firm root. And a life well, it needs depth, not just surface polish. Gardening is no different. And when it comes to watering, this lesson rings especially true. Shallow sips lead to weak roots. But deep drinks, they build strength. It's a mistake many well-meaning gardeners make, especially those who love their plants and want to check in every day. A quick sprinkle here, a light spray there. It feels nurturing. But over time, those daily drizzles barely moisten the top inch of soil. The water never reaches deep enough. And as a result, the roots stay near the surface, fragile, needy, and easily scorched when the sun bears down. Now think about this: when you give your plants a deep soaking one that reaches 8 to 10 inches into the soil, you're doing more than quenching their thirst. You're training them, encouraging their roots to stretch downward, to search, to grow resilient. These are the plants that survive dry spells, the ones that bounce back after heat waves, the ones that stand tall even when the hose hasn't been turned on for a few days. It's like teaching independence gently, patiently over time. So how do we water deeply? It starts with slowing down. Instead of watering a little every day, aim to water thoroughly once or twice a week, depending on the weather, your soil, and the types of plants you grow. For most gardens, about 1 inch of water per week is a good rule. That's around 0.62 gallons per square foot. If it sounds like math, don't worry. There's an easy way to measure it. Place a small, straight-sided container. A tuna can works perfectly on the soil while you water. When it fills to 1 inch, you've delivered enough. That way you don't have to guess. Another trick is the screwdriver test. After watering, gently push a long screwdriver or metal rod into the soil. If it slides in easily 6 to 8 inches and comes out moist, your water has reached the roots. If not, keep watering until it does. Now, if you're growing in containers, raised beds, or sandy soil, you might need to water more often, but still deeply. Sandy soil drains quickly and doesn't hold moisture well. Clay soil, on the other hand, holds water longer but can get compacted. Either way, the goal remains: get that water to the root zone and let it sink in. And then, this part is important, you wait. Let the soil dry out just a bit before watering again. That slight dryness encourages roots to grow downward in search of moisture rather than clustering near the surface. It also reduces the risk of root rot, which happens when soil stays soggy for too long. Now, for young seedlings or newly transplanted flowers, you do need to water more often at first. Their tiny roots can't reach deep yet. A good rule of thumb is to water them daily during their first week or two, especially in hot weather. But as they mature, start spacing out the waterings. Teach them to grow strong. There's even scientific proof behind this. Studies have shown that plants actually adapt their root systems based on how and where we water. If moisture is always available near the surface, roots stay shallow. But when water is deeper down, roots grow longer and more intricate, just like nature intended. Isn't that fascinating, the way life learns to reach to stretch when we don't make everything too easy? It's a quiet metaphor for resilience. So, dear friend, next time you're standing with your hose, or can ask yourself not just did I water, but did I water deeply? It may take a few extra minutes, but the reward is a sturdier, healthier plant that can withstand the ups and downs of the seasons. And just like people, plants with deep roots don't panic when life gets a little dry. They draw from within, they hold steady, they bloom anyway. Let's help them do that with patience, with intention, and with water that sinks far below the surface. Do you remember a time when rest was built into the rhythm of life? Sundays were quiet. Evenings weren't always filled. And gardens, like people, were given space to breathe. That idea, dear friend, still holds true beneath the soil. Just as we need pauses between our busy days, plants too need time between waterings. And one of the most common missteps many gardeners make, especially those who love to check in daily, is watering too often and too lightly. It feels gentle. It feels attentive. But over time, it can do more harm than good. When we water every single day, especially with just a small amount, the soil stays constantly damp at the top, but often remains dry below. And the roots, well, they adapt. They stay shallow. They get lazy. They don't learn to reach downward. That top layer dries out quickly in the sun, so the plant is constantly thirsty, always relying on us to step in. But when we allow the soil to dry slightly between waterings, we're sending an invitation: stretch your roots. Grow deeper. You've got this. This doesn't mean neglect. It means trust. It means balance. Now, how can we know when enough is enough? A good way is to simply check with your hands. Stick your finger about 2 inches into the soil. If it feels dry, it's time to water. If it's still moist, your garden can wait another day. You can also use a trowel to dig a little and see for yourself, or invest in a moisture meter if kneeling is tough these days. For lawns, a deep watering once or twice a week is better than a daily mist. It encourages roots to dive deeper, which makes the grass more drought tolerant. The same goes for flower beds and vegetables. A proper soak enough to moisten the soil 6 to 8 inches down will carry your plants through several days, even in warm weather. Of course, young seedlings and new transplants still need more frequent care. Their roots are small and can't yet travel far. In those early days, you may need to water them daily or even twice daily during heat waves. But as they establish themselves, ease off. Help them become sturdy, not dependent. Different soils play a role too. Sandy soil drains quickly, so it may need more frequent deep waterings. Clay soil, which holds water longer, benefits from slower, less frequent sessions to prevent pooling and rot. If you're unsure, take a week or two to observe. Watch how fast your soil dries after a rain or watering. Let the garden teach you. There's a kind of wisdom in letting go of strict routines. Maybe you've felt it in other areas of life, the freedom that comes when we stop doing something out of habit and start doing it with intention. Watering is the same. You don't need to just water every morning because it's what you've always done. Instead, let your plants and your soil guide you. Some days your garden will surprise you. After a cloudy spell or unexpected rain, you might skip watering altogether. Other days, a hot breeze might whisper that the tomatoes need a little help. Listen, respond, adapt. And here's something to remember: overwatering is just as dangerous as underwatering. In fact, a plant drooping in soggy soil might not be thirsty at all. It might be drowning. Its roots may be suffocating, unable to breathe because the water never had a chance to drain. If you ever see yellowing leaves mold on the surface or persistent wilting despite damp soil, consider whether you've been too generous. It's a hard thing to accept sometimes that even kindness can smother when it's too constant. But in gardening, as in life, love needs space. So let your watering become a dance with the weather, with the soil, with the season. Trust that your garden is learning as you are. When you hold back thoughtfully, you're not abandoning your plants. You're helping them grow stronger on their own. And isn't that what we want in the end? Not a garden that survives only by our daily hand, but one that thrives because we've taught it how to stand tall in the sun, even when the watering can stays on the porch. Water deeply, then wait. Let the roots breathe, let the earth whisper, and let your garden rest. Have you ever watched rain fall gently through the trees only to see it never quite reach the ground? It's beautiful, that shimmering dance on the leaves, but when it comes to watering your garden, what looks graceful isn't always what's best. Many gardeners, especially in our early years, learn to water from above. We wave the hose in wide arcs or stand back with a spray nozzle, letting the water shower down like a warm summer rain. And for a moment, it feels satisfying. The leaves glisten, the flowers drip, and everything seems refreshed. But then disease creeps in. You see, when we water from above, the leaves stay wet. And wet leaves, especially in warm or humid conditions, become the perfect breeding ground for all kinds of fungal troubles, powdery mildew, black spot rust, and blight. These silent invaders don't need much to take hold, just a few hours of moisture, especially overnight, and your once vibrant plants can begin to struggle. Here's the truth: leaves don't drink water, roots do. So when we aim our watering at the foliage, we're missing the mark. It's like trying to feed someone by pouring soup on their head. What your plants really need is for the water to go directly into the soil, where their roots can take it in slowly and steadily. The best way to do this: water low and slow. Use a watering can with a long spout or a hose with a gentle wand that lets you reach down to the base of each plant. You don't need pressure, you need precision. If your garden beds are crowded, try laying your hose on the soil and letting it trickle gently around each cluster. You can even place a small flat stone under the stream to prevent erosion and help the water seep in evenly. For thirstier plants like tomatoes or roses, you can dig a small circular trench or basin around the base. That way, when you water, it pools at the roots rather than running off. And if lifting or kneeling is tough these days, consider using a soaker hose. It's a porous tube that you lay across your garden bed. It oozes water gently right at soil level, soaking the earth without ever touching the leaves. You just turn it on and let it do its quiet work. No dragging, no lifting, no splashing. There's also the option of drip irrigation, a more advanced system, but surprisingly simple once it's set up. Tubes and emitters deliver small amounts of water directly to the root zones, minimizing waste and maximizing health. And many of these systems can be connected to timers, making them especially helpful for gardeners who need to conserve energy or manage mobility. The beauty of these low-to-the-ground methods is that they don't just protect your plants, they also save water. When you water the soil directly, very little evaporates into the air. And because the surface stays drier, fewer weed seeds germinate. You end up with a cleaner, healthier garden and a smaller water bill. Not bad for a small adjustment in angle and aim. Now, if you do accidentally splash the leaves while watering, don't worry. It happens to all of us. Just try to water earlier in the day so the sun has time to dry the foliage before nightfall. That alone can make a big difference in disease prevention. And if you've been watering from above for years, there's no need to feel bad. We've all done what we thought was right. But learning to shift our habits is part of the joy of gardening, just like learning to listen better, move slower, and trust nature's quiet instructions. So next time you head out with the hose or the can, remember this simple phrase: water the roots, not the leaves. It's one of those gentle truths that applies far beyond the garden gate too. Care given in the right place, where it's truly needed, has a way of changing everything. And just like your plants, you don't need to shine to be growing. Sometimes the real strength is happening underground, where no one sees, but where life takes root. Water low, water wise, and let those roots go deep. There comes a point in every gardener's journey when bending, hauling, and dragging hoses no longer feels like a joyful part of the process. Maybe the knees creak a little louder, or the shoulders remind us they've carried years of care. That's when it's time to garden smarter, not harder. And dear friend, if you haven't yet discovered the quiet magic of drip irrigation and soaker hoses, you're in for a peaceful treat. Let's begin with the soaker hose. Imagine a long, flexible tube made of porous material, almost like a sponge, that you can weave through your garden beds. Once turned on, it oozes water slowly and gently along its entire length. Not a spray, not a gush. Just a calm, steady trickle that sinks right into the soil where the roots need it most. It doesn't splash, it doesn't run off. And best of all, you can leave it in place and simply turn the water on and off with ease, no need to lift a thing. For anyone with limited strength or mobility, a soaker hose becomes more than a convenience, it becomes a trusted companion. Now, let's talk about drip irrigation. This system might sound fancy, but don't let the name scare you. It's simply a series of small tubes and emitters. Think of tiny straws placed near the base of each plant that deliver precise amounts of water directly to the root zone. Drop by drop, hour by hour, your plants receive exactly what they need, no more, no less. Why is this helpful? First, it saves water. Studies show that drip systems can reduce outdoor water use by up to 50% compared to traditional sprinklers. In a world where every drop matters, especially for those on fixed incomes or living in dry areas, that kind of efficiency isn't just smart, it's kind. Second, it saves you time and effort. Once the system is set up, you can attach it to a timer so it runs automatically early in the morning while you sip your tea or enjoy the sunrise. No more dragging hoses across the yard. No more worrying about whether you forgot to water the tomatoes. Third, it reduces disease. Because the water goes straight to the soil and never touches the leaves, your garden stays dry on the surface, meaning fewer chances for fungal infections, mildew, or mold. For raised beds or rows of vegetables, both systems work beautifully. You can loop a soaker hose in a spiral pattern around your plants, or run drip lines neatly down each row. There are kits available at most hardware stores that come with everything you need, and if installation sounds intimidating, many seniors find that asking a grandchild, neighbor, or handyman to help for an hour or two makes all the difference. Once it's in place, it practically runs itself. And here's something many gardeners don't realize: these systems are just as helpful for small container gardens or patio pots. You can connect drip emitters to reach each pot individually, delivering just enough moisture without soaking your entire porch or wasting a single drop. If you're more tech-inclined, there are even smart irrigation systems now. Some use sensors to measure soil moisture or weather forecasts to decide when to water. They connect to your smartphone, letting you monitor your garden from the comfort of your recliner. It's like having a gardening assistant who never forgets and never gets tired. But even without the gadgets, the idea is simple: deliver water exactly where it's needed with minimal effort and maximum love. In many ways, drip irrigation and soaker hoses mirror the quiet style of seasoned gardeners, steady, focused, and thoughtful. We've learned that noisy, dramatic efforts rarely last. What does endure are the consistent small acts of care that add up to something beautiful. So if your hands are a little stiffer than they once were, or if you're simply ready to bring more ease and efficiency to your garden, let the water work for you. Let it move gently underground, whispering life into the roots while you rest in the shade and watch the flowers bloom. You've earned the right to do things the easy way. And with a little help from hoses and drip lines, your garden can grow stronger with less strain on you. After all, it's not how much work you do that defines your garden. It's how wisely you water. There's a quiet kind of comfort in tucking something in. A baby with a soft blanket, a pie with a golden crust, a garden bed with a layer of mulch. Each one is an act of gentle care, a way of saying, "You're safe now. Rest easy." And in your garden, mulch might just be one of the most powerful and most loving tools you can use. At first glance, mulch seems simple, just a layer of material spread over the soil. But oh, how much good it does beneath the surface. Mulch keeps the moisture in the weeds out and the soil protected from the extremes of weather. It's a shield, a sponge, a blanket all rolled into one. When the sun beats down, mulch shades the soil, slowing evaporation and keeping it cooler. When winds blow dry, mulch holds the topsoil in place and locks in moisture. And when the rain falls, mulch helps the water soak in, gently reducing runoff. In fact, a 2 to 3 inch layer of mulch can reduce evaporation by up to 70%. That means you water less often and your plants stay hydrated longer. Especially for gardeners living in hot or dry regions, this is more than a convenience. It's a lifeline. So what kind of mulch should you use? The answer depends on what you have, what you love, and what your garden needs. Organic mulches like shredded leaves, straw wood chips, bark pine needles, grass clippings, or compost are favorites among many gardeners. Over time, they break down and enrich the soil, improving texture, feeding microbes, and adding nutrients. If you've ever swept up autumn leaves or saved the clippings from a summer mow, you already have mulch waiting to be used. Layer it around your flowers, vegetables, shrubs, and trees, keeping it a few inches away from stems or trunks to prevent rot. Compost in particular is a gardener's treasure. Dark, rich, and full of life, it holds water like a sponge and feeds your plants as it melts into the earth. Some gardeners mix compost into the soil and then top with a different mulch like straw or bark for both beauty and function. If your soil is heavy with clay, compost opens it up, adding air pockets that improve drainage and allow water to sink deeper. If your soil is sandy and drains too quickly, compost helps it hold moisture longer. Either way, it brings balance and life. And for those who prefer a tidier look, decorative mulches like bark nuggets or cocoa hulls can add charm while still doing the work beneath. No matter the type, the key is consistency. Replenish your mulch layer as it thins out over the season, and take a moment to notice how the soil underneath stays damp even on the hottest days. That's mulch at work, quiet, steady, and reliable. Now here's something else to love: mulch keeps weeds from sprouting. By covering the soil and blocking sunlight, mulch makes it harder for weed seeds to grow. That means less bending, less pulling, and fewer battles with crabgrass and dandelions. It also protects your plant's roots from extreme temperature swings. In winter, mulch acts like insulation, keeping roots warmer. In summer, it keeps them cooler. That's especially helpful for shallow-rooted plants who are more sensitive to temperature stress. And let's not forget beauty. A mulched garden looks tended, calm, peaceful. Whether it's soft straw around your zinnias or dark bark framing your azaleas, mulch gives your beds a finished, intentional look. For older gardeners or anyone looking to save time, energy, and water, mulch is a gift. It reduces how often you need to water. It keeps weeds at bay. It feeds your soil naturally. And it asks so little in return. You don't need to buy fancy bags either. Many cities offer free mulch from tree trimmings. Neighbors rake leaves and bag them up in the fall. Why not ask if you can give those leaves a second life in your garden? There's something satisfying about using what you already have, about turning scraps into nourishment. And mulch, in its humble way, is part of that quiet cycle of decay, turning into bloom of protection, turning into growth. So, if you haven't mulched lately, consider giving your garden beds a little blanket. Especially during dry spells or heat waves, your plants will feel the difference. And you'll feel the ease. Because sometimes the best way to care for something isn't to do more, but to cover it with love and let it rest. That's what mulch does. And that's what you're doing too. There's a quiet alchemy that happens in a compost pile, something beautiful, earthy, and honest. Peelings, clippings, coffee grounds, old leaves. Things the world might call waste become in time a rich gift to the soil. Compost, dear friend, is more than fertilizer. It's nourishment, memory, and magic all wrapped in one. And when it comes to watering wisely, compost is one of the best allies you'll ever have. Let's begin with this simple truth. Compost helps soil hold on to water. Whether your garden sits on sandy ground that drains too fast or clay that resists water and dries hard as a rock, adding compost can change everything. You see, compost acts like a sponge. Its particles are rich in organic matter, tiny, porous, and soft, able to absorb water and slowly release it over time. That means less runoff, less pooling, and far more moisture reaching the roots. In fact, studies show that compost-enriched soil holds up to 30% more water than untreated soil. That's water you don't have to add and money you don't have to spend. It also improves soil texture. Sandy soil, which normally drains too fast, becomes more cohesive and better at retaining moisture. Clay soil, which can be tight and stubborn, opens up and becomes more breathable, allowing water to penetrate deeper rather than running off the surface. The result? Your watering goes further. You can water less often and your plants still thrive. Especially during dry spells or heat waves, compost-rich soil acts like a reservoir beneath your feet, storing moisture like a savings account for the roots. Now, if you've never composted before, don't worry. You don't need a big bin or a complicated system. You can start small right in the corner of your garden or in a simple pile near the shed. Every apple core, every faded bloom, every eggshell is a step closer to richer soil. And if turning compost isn't something your back wants to do anymore, there are gentler ways. Lay your kitchen scraps with dry leaves in a corner, cover with a bit of soil, and let nature take its course. Worm composting vermiculture is another option that's surprisingly easy and clean for small spaces. But even if you don't make your own, many communities offer free or low-cost compost. Local gardens, city green waste programs, or even neighbors who compost may be happy to share. And a single bag from the garden center, worked gently into the top few inches of soil, can begin to shift the way your garden holds water. It's also wonderful for containers. Potted plants dry out faster than those in the ground. But by mixing compost into your potting mix, you can extend the time between waterings and keep roots happier in the heat. Compost doesn't just help with water either. It feeds the soil in ways synthetic fertilizers never could. It invites worms and helpful microbes. It balances pH, supports root health, and boosts your plant's ability to fight disease. It's gentle, it's wise, and it asks for nothing more than what we already have: scraps, time, and patience. Some gardeners like to top dress with compost, sprinkling a light layer over the soil in spring or fall. Others mix it in during planting or dig it gently into their beds during the off-season. However you use it, compost becomes part of your garden's heartbeat, a quiet rhythm of give and receive. And perhaps that's the real beauty of it. Compost reminds us that nothing has to go to waste, that even the fading and the falling can become fertile, that every banana peel or dried-out bloom has a second life waiting beneath the surface. For older gardeners especially, composting can feel deeply satisfying. It brings purpose to routine, closure to the harvest, and promise to the future. And the water savings, well, they're simply the cherry on top. So as you think about watering your garden, how often, how much, how deeply, don't forget what's under your feet. Because healthy soil full of compost holds water better than any gadget or tool. And every time you see a bloom that came from what was once waste, you'll be reminded nature knows how to renew. So let it. Add a little compost, water a little less, and watch your garden thrive in quiet gratitude. Because the smartest way to water might just begin with what's already in your hands. Before you can know how to water your garden wisely, you must first get to know the earth beneath your feet. Soil isn't just dirt. It's a living foundation, one that tells stories, holds memory, and shapes the way water moves. And like people, every type of soil has its own personality. Some soils are tight and stubborn, holding water too long. Others are loose and airy, letting it slip through too fast. And some, well, they're just right. Let's talk about the 3 most common soil types and how each one affects the way you water. First, there's clay. Clay soil is heavy, dense, and holds water well, sometimes a little too well. You might notice puddles forming when you water or see that the surface stays wet for hours after a rain. When it's dry, clay can bake hard as a brick. When it's wet, it can be sticky and compacted, making it difficult for water and roots to move freely. If you're gardening in clay, the key is to water slowly and deeply, giving the water time to soak in without running off. A slow drip, trickle, or soaker hose is ideal. Mulching helps prevent crusting, and adding compost over time loosens the soil, creating pockets for air and moisture to move. Test your soil by digging a small hole after watering. If the water pools and doesn't drain within a few hours, your soil may be heavy clay. But don't despair, many beautiful plants, especially perennials and shrubs, adapt well to this type of earth once established. Next, there's sandy soil. Sandy soil is light, gritty, and drains quickly. It warms up early in spring, which plants love, but it also dries out fast, sometimes too fast. If you water in the morning, it may already feel dry again by late afternoon. To keep plants happy in sandy soil, you may need to water more frequently, but still deeply. Mulch becomes especially important here, helping slow evaporation. And mixing in compost or peat moss improves the soil's ability to retain moisture and nutrients. You can test sandy soil by taking a handful and squeezing it. If it crumbles apart and feels gritty in your palm, chances are you've got sand. It's well suited for root vegetables and Mediterranean herbs like lavender or rosemary, which don't mind a drier home. And then there's loam. Ah, loam. The gardener's dream. It's a balanced blend of clay, sand, and silt, offering good drainage, moisture retention, and a soft texture that roots adore. If your garden is lucky enough to sit on loam, watering becomes less tricky. Water soaks in, evenly holds without pooling, and provides your plants with just the right drink. You'll still want to practice smart watering habits early in the day, deeply and infrequently. But loamy soil gives you a bit more forgiveness. It also takes well to compost and mulch, which only makes a good thing even better. Not sure what kind of soil you have? Try this simple home test. Take a handful of moist soil and squeeze it into a ball in your hand. Then gently poke it with your finger. If it stays in a tight ball and feels sticky, it's clay. If it falls apart immediately, it's sandy. If it holds together but breaks apart with a light touch, it's loam. Another clue is how your plants behave. Do they wilt quickly after watering? Does the water seem to vanish too fast or puddle for hours? Your soil is speaking. And the more you listen, the more wisely you'll water. Each soil type has its blessings and its challenges. There's no perfect garden bed, but with a little observation and adjustment, you can work with your soil, not against it. Clay needs patience and air. Sand needs support and more frequent care. Loam just needs your continued love. So before you worry about fancy tools or watering schedules, take a walk through your garden and get to know what's under your feet. Reach down, feel the earth, let it crumble between your fingers. Because once you understand how your soil holds or loses water, you'll know exactly how to give your plants what they need. And as with many things in life, when we take time to understand the foundation, everything above it grows stronger. Sometimes the best gardeners aren't the ones who know the most, but the ones who listen the best. Plants may not have voices like ours, dear friend, but they do speak. Not in words, but in posture, in color, in texture. A drooping stem, a yellowed edge, a leaf curling toward the sky or shrinking inward. These are the whispers of your garden, and learning to understand them is one of the most tender skills you'll ever develop. Let's begin with something many of us have seen: wilting. It's easy to assume that a drooping plant needs water, and often it's true, but not always. You see, plants like people sometimes wilt from stress, not just thirst. In the hottest part of the day, even well-watered plants may droop as a protective response to intense sunlight. Their leaves soften and lower to reduce exposure, kind of like how we seek shade when the afternoon sun bears down. If you water during this time, you may be overreacting and overwatering. Here's the trick check again in the evening. If the plant perks back up as temperatures cool, it didn't need water, it just needed rest. But if it's still drooping after sunset or the next morning, that's a true signal of thirst. Then it's time to offer a slow, deep drink at the roots. Yellowing leaves are another quiet message. When the lower leaves turn pale and fall off, it might mean too much water, especially if the soil feels soggy. Overwatering drowns the roots, preventing them from getting oxygen and, ironically, causing a kind of suffocation. If the leaves are turning brown and crispy instead, you may be watering too little or too late. You might also see signs of fungus or mold on the soil surface. That's often the result of watering too frequently or late in the day when the moisture lingers and creates a damp, still environment. These are your garden's ways of saying, "I love the attention, but please let me breathe." One of the simplest and most effective things you can do is check the soil before watering. Stick your finger into the dirt about 2 inches deep. If it feels moist, wait. If it's dry, go ahead and water. A small trowel or moisture meter can help if kneeling is difficult. Some gardeners even keep a little journal marking what days they watered, how much rain fell, and how the plants looked. Over time, patterns emerge. You begin to anticipate your garden's needs before they become problems. Another wise practice is grouping plants by their water needs. Tomatoes, cucumbers, and bedding flowers like petunias are thirsty types. Lavender, rosemary, and succulents, not so much. When you keep them in separate beds or containers, it's easier to give each group just what they need, no more, no less. And let's not forget about seasonal changes. What your plants needed in spring may not match their needs in summer. As temperatures rise, so does evaporation, and your garden will let you know when it needs an adjustment. But always take weather and forecast into account. If rain is coming tomorrow, let nature lend a hand. If there's been an unexpected dry spell, step in with support. Listening is especially important for older plants and established shrubs. They might not wilt as obviously, but they still rely on deep occasional watering to thrive. Don't be fooled by silence. Check the soil, watch the leaves, and remember that roots often speak last. And what about new plants or seedlings? These little ones are much more vocal. They'll wilt quickly without water, especially in summer. For their first few weeks, they may need daily or every other day attention. But once they've rooted in, they'll join the rhythm of the rest of your garden. You've lived long enough to know that care is more than action, it's attention. Noticing, pausing, reading between the lines. And gardening is no different. Every plant in your yard is trying to communicate. You don't need fancy tools to hear them, just your eyes, your hands, and your heart. So walk slowly, observe gently. Let your garden tell you when it's thirsty, tired, or simply in need of time. Because when you learn to listen, really listen, your watering becomes not just effective, but tender, responsive, and wise. The best gardeners don't water on a strict schedule. They water in partnership with the plants, with the weather, and with love. There's a certain humility in gardening, a quiet understanding that we are never truly in charge. We may plant the seeds, water the beds, and prune the stems, but in the end, it's the weather that holds the final say. And once we accept that, dear friend, gardening becomes much more peaceful. Too often we try to force routines onto our gardens. Water every Monday. Fertilize on the 15th. Turn on the sprinkler at 8 a.m., rain or shine. But nature doesn't follow our calendars. It follows the clouds, the wind, the sun, and the soil. When we learn to watch and respond rather than control, we become not just better gardeners, but calmer ones. Start with this simple habit: check the forecast. Not just for temperature, but for rain. If a steady shower is expected tomorrow, you may not need to water today. Let the sky do its work. Not only does this save effort, it conserves water and protects your plants from being overwatered. And if a heat wave is coming, consider watering a little deeper the evening before, allowing moisture to settle in and prepare the roots for the extra demand. It's like tucking in your plants with an extra blanket before a cold night, except this time it's for warmth. The same goes for wind. A gusty day can dry out soil quickly, especially in containers or raised beds. After a breezy spell, check the moisture before assuming your garden is fine. Sometimes the air steals more than we see. Your climate matters too. Gardeners in the Pacific Northwest must think about drainage and mold more than drought. Those in the Southwest may water in the early dawn and focus on keeping roots cool. Knowing your USDA hardiness zone or local weather patterns helps tailor your watering strategy to your region. There's no one-size-fits-all, and that's part of the beauty. Now let's talk about tools. A simple rain gauge in your garden can be a big help. Set out a tuna can or small container with straight sides and see how much rain actually falls in a week. You'd be surprised how often a stormy forecast only gives a light sprinkle. If there's less than an inch, your garden may still be thirsty. You can also invest in a moisture meter, an inexpensive device that reads how wet the soil is below the surface. It's especially useful for those who have trouble kneeling or digging. No more guessing. Just stick it in the ground, read the dial, and water accordingly. Some seasoned gardeners keep a little notebook or calendar nearby, jotting down what they did each week, rain, sun, watering, and how the plants responded. Over time, this becomes a treasure trove of knowledge, one written by your own hands in your own backyard. And if writing isn't your style, no worries. Even a mental note or a quiet moment observing the leaves and soil will keep you in tune. Just step outside, feel the air touch the earth, and ask your garden, "How are you today?" One important principle to remember is this: water slowly. Give the soil time to absorb. If you water too fast, especially after dry weather, the moisture runs off or pools on top, never reaching the roots. Pause, let it soak in, then come back and finish. It's not about volume, it's about depth. Also, be mindful of where your water goes. Is your sprinkler hitting the sidewalk? Is your hose leaking at the spout? Every misplaced drop adds up on your bill and on our shared planet. Adjust your aim. Check your connections. Make sure your water is nourishing life, not washing down the drain. And finally, remember you don't have to do it all at once. Spread your watering tasks over the week. Let nature share the load. Rest when it rains. Water when it dries. Work with the rhythm, not against it. Because gardening isn't a race, it's a relationship. One that deepens with patience, with awareness, and with grace. When you garden with the weather, not in spite of it, you step into harmony with something far larger than yourself. You become part of the unfolding pattern of seasons, sky, and soil. And there is no better teacher or healer than that. So next time you reach for the hose or look up at the sky, ask yourself, what is the weather saying today? Then listen, adjust, respond. Your plants will thank you. And your heart, I think, will feel just a little more in step with the world. So here we are, dear friend. 12 gentle truths, all leading back to one simple idea. Watering isn't just a chore. It's a conversation. A quiet partnership between you and your garden. Between your wisdom and the earth's quiet needs. You've learned how to water early and why that morning moment matters. You've learned to aim for the roots, not the leaves. To go deep, not just often. You've explored mulch and compost soil types and signs of stress. You've even made peace with the weather, letting it guide rather than frustrate you. But more than anything, I hope this journey reminded you of this. Your care still matters. Your hands still bring life. Your presence, slow, thoughtful, experienced, is your garden's greatest gift. There's something profoundly hopeful in tending a plant. Something healing in kneeling beside a bed of soil or walking gently between rows of flowers. As we age, we sometimes wonder where we're still needed. But in the garden, the answer is always clear here. Now, today. With every careful drop of water, you remind the earth and yourself that it's never too late to grow. That even dry places can bloom. That beauty still returns season after season when we offer what we have with love. So take your time, sip your tea. Let the birdsong guide your footsteps. And when you next lift your watering can or switch on your hose, may it feel less like a task and more like a prayer. A ritual of presence. A blessing in motion. Which of these watering ideas brought you peace today? Leave a gentle comment below. I'd love to hear what you're trying in your own garden. And if you'd like more soft, practical inspiration like this, be sure to subscribe. There's always more to grow, more to learn, more to love. Until next time, happy gardening, dear friend. And may your roots go deep, your blooms be bright, and your spirit stay tender with wonder.